Hey everybody, Dan Schinder here with
Steven Schinder.
Here on YesShift with our guest today, Steve Howe. Steve, welcome. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Great. We are so excited to talk to you about two things primarily, if only. This amazing album, Lunar Mist with Virgil, just such a great album. And of course, we want to give you an opportunity to talk about the Yes Tour. Stephen is putting in the links to where people can purchase the album and also where people can look up your tour and everything. The first question I have for you is this, Steve. Stephen and I, my Stephen, it's a father-son show, so it's coincidental that this is a father-son project with Virgil that you did. The late, great Virgil, just such a magician in the studio, really. And Steve and I are both huge fans of Roger Dean. We're actually going to San Francisco to see his exhibit. But I got to tell you, I might be a little more excited about going to see your granddaughter's exhibit because she did the artwork for the album. And we're showing that now for everybody. What was that like to bring her into the fold?
Well, yeah, that started with Nexus when, we had that image that she did for Nexus. And, I think she was only 2 when she did that. So she keeps saying to us that, I could do a new painting for you. But there's something about these very organic, sort of natural, without thinking sort of artwork that she's done for this one. And, as you can see, that's another kind of very early image from her where she was just sort of like, like children do, they're so free of restrictions and inhibitions and things like that, that they just draw and paint. It's wonderful. So, yeah, we've been delighted to include yet another one of her images. Of course, now she's 10 already, so she's kind of like a real person and a beautiful person too. So it's remarkable that she's already a published artist in her own right.
Yeah, I wonder if Roger's getting intimidated.
Yeah, he might be. Yeah, missing out and things. No, he's beautiful too, but he knows. We do so much work together that, when we don't, it's another kind of facet, But of course, Doug and Glenn Gottlieb are our go-to people for the sleeve designs besides the artwork. And they've been involved in most of my solo career, most of my solo work, CDs, releases, and also, of course, Yes. So.
Yeah, that's right. And Stephen has the vinyl version, which also has excellent packaging.
It's amazing. Yes. Even comes with a CD and just, I love the packaging of this. You got the record in here and there's also a nice Virgil picture inside.
Poster, by our friend Mike. He's been wonderful on that. He's been so kind. Yeah.
Did a great job. What was the process like with this album? I think actually Steve can probably articulate. He and I were talking about this concept. So I'm going to let you ask the question, Steve. I think you could articulate it a little bit better.
Okay. Oh.
Right. From what I understand, the title track was left over from Nexus, and it was supposed to be a bonus track. So what was the process like of putting together this second album?
Right. Well, I mean, I didn't really know, whether we'd have this album. It was really a question of research. So like I kind of briefly explained on the CD sleeve, but basically it was in my mind because Thomas Weber is such a great guy, at Inside Out Sony, who's been releasing, Yes, and also Virgil and I. And, years ago, we were doing lots of solo projects. So basically he said, well, look, if you get happy with something, we'll obviously see the commitment through. So I didn't know, it took a couple of years of grief and remorse and regret. Things. And then I started to look at his music and I thought, well, I think I hear it, I think I'm hearing it. But knowing that we had the opening track already, the title track, now we've given it for the album Lunar Mist, that was how we titled just that tune when it was a bonus track that didn't become a bonus, if you like. So it lay there waiting. And the reason I put it first is although at first I thought I was going to put it last, but I put it first because it's a continuation directly of the Nexus project, and it has his production, which is much, something I admire very much in the way he put his music together as he did with Nexus. He was really, after all, the producer on that one. So the production skills that he brought, he just underestimated himself. I think we all underestimated his talent on the keyboards. Just amazing. Kind of textural and interesting and weird and kind of quirky person. And then his music, which all these piano tunes were really just like a side project in his career, with his bands, Lunatic, Dirty Feel, and his work with other artists, where he was coming along as a producer. So what happened, very briefly, was that I started to compile sufficient tracks, a few more, and then I thought, no, that the other ones didn't really have the quality I wanted or the style, Right. So I think these ones kind of fit, as best as it can without his beautiful presence to give it the final production. I had to take that over myself. So I just kept thinking, Virgil, enjoyed me playing on his piano tunes a lot, really was excited. And, it's real tragic that he didn't, get to see it kind of coming out. But we still went ahead with it because we thought, no, this cannot go down the tube. This
Right.
cannot get lost in the world of, problems and hell and high water. So when this album started to get, correlated and organized by me, I was really got the belief that we were going to get there in the end. And, it took a little while, and I was doing a lot of fiddling around on guitars and occasional basses and, thoroughly doing things on the music. And there we are. We've got Lunar Mist, and that's the presentation that we can, kind of sort of sadly close the book and say, well, really, there's not a lot more that's of this style that Virgil left behind. So we're delighted it's come out and celebrated, even was released on what would have been his birthday. Yeah. So, it's really been a labor of love for me and Thomas and our family.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
We both really love both Lunar Mist and Nexus. It's just
we did a whole episode dedicated to those. And they're just real gems. And you mentioned his production chops. Just a quick side note, the Yes remixes he did floored me because I thought I was getting the songs I knew that might have just been mixed differently, and they're really reconstructed, reimagined. What was that like? Was that a huge surprise, or were you kind of peeking in on the project as it was going on? Were you and the other members who had played on that stuff like, what's going on? We're just real curious.
Virgil started doing some. I can't remember which track he did first. He did one track and said, well, what do you think, Dad? And I said, well, this is unbelievable. It may have even been the track from Drama, which is one of the high spots on it, particularly. Yeah. So basically, he said, well, what do you think? I said, well, I think you should go ahead. I'll talk to Atlantic about how this could be released. Rhino obviously do the re-releasing.
Right.
And they were really up for it, and so it became a beautiful thing. He did the rest of them. We went to Abbey Road, EMI Abbey Road, to do the mastering because we thought we ought to bring a bit of sonority and clarity and hunky sound to it, which because Virgil did it on his own laptop kind of thing, but it just shows his production style could weather the transitions of the storms, and so we were really delighted with that. We're always touched by the special people who tuned into it and thought, wow, what is this? Because like you say, it's songs you kind of know, but you don't know them.
Yeah. And people who were into that style of music could enjoy it, not being familiar with any original track on there. And when you look at the fact that he took music that spanned decades and made them all sound like the same family members on that one album with his production style, it really is a work of genius. It really is. It's amazing.
I thought it was. And I'm delighted that, Rhino could hear it too, and they were excited, and, they looked after Virgil a bit, and, they were a great team. So, I thank all the people involved.
Speaking of a team, Steve, what was it like working shoulder to shoulder with him in the studio? And was it always shoulder to shoulder, or were there times when he'd say, I need some space, let me do my thing here in the Magic Hat? Was he always producing you? What was the relationship like, the working
Okay.
relationship?
Well, obviously, he initiated, the fundamental keyboard track. But talking about Nexus, it's kind of easier because basically I selected the tracks. And then he said, okay, yeah, I'm all happy with those. So I played guitars on them. And as I started doing the guitars, of course, he said to me, do you know I've got other stuff on this? And I said, what do you mean, more than a piano? Because I was really just working with a piano guitar duet concept.
Oh, how funny.
Then he said, yeah, but I've got other stuff going on behind that. You haven't heard it. So when I heard that, I thought, oh no, we're rocking. This is going to be wonderful because it didn't just rest on a one keyboard and the guitar kind of thing. It was a whole textured sound. Well, that's when his production really came to the fore, and the little noodling things he does and the spacey things he does, and like the way that, like, for instance, Lunar Mist, which, as I said, we can talk about in the same breath because it was part of Nexus. But basically, it's amazing how that track, when I hear it now. Well, what I did was I played Lunar Mist recently, as one does when you've done an album. You let a little time go by and you play it back. And then I played this and I went, oh my God, I've got to listen to Nexus now. So I put Nexus on. I went, oh my God, this is phenomenal, because his production, scanned the whole thing. And yeah, I mean, the way I was going to mention the way Nexus starts, it starts with me playing a koto, ding.
Yeah.
Jing, and it kind of drifts in, and basically it's another world. I can't reproduce, I can't fake, I can't copy what Virgil does. Being a guitarist, obviously, I mean, I play a bit of keys and all that, but basically I'm a guitarist. I see things, with a guitar perspective. But no, it was really remarkable, and I would have loved him to have a greater influence on the whole project. But of course he's sadly we lost him, and we I had to fill in the gap, if you like. It was big shoes to fill in, especially when I realised that Nexus had so much of his production style. It was almost level with his keyboard playing, and his drumming. So. It's been an eye-opener to me to have gone through the process of trying to develop this album to be a complete, work from Virgil. And like one of the main differences on this one is because he wasn't around for me to collaborate in some of the ways I did on Nexus. The songwriting, the tune writing, much more goes to him, because a lot more of it was going to be unaltered and I would only add stuff. There were just a couple of tracks where I had to develop, maybe more of a front, more of a top line. So I split those songs. So this one's even more like of his writing because, as I said, Nexus had a kind of much more of a pure collaborative sense with me actually being able to get in there and alterations. But I must say he always came up with the end thing, on Nexus. He very much like, okay, Dad, what do you think about this? And I go, oh, oh, I like this, So I would throw my guitars on, he would mess, and he would come up. He'd talk to me, that bit's nice, but can I leave this bit out? I said, yeah, just leave that bit out and then come in here. So, but this time I had to be the whole process. So it was a responsibility that I did with all the love we've got for him.
Yeah. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing all that. And folks, we all know if you have kids, we know it's easy for us parents to dote on our kids and all of that. But I want to step in here. I know Steve could speak up too. It truly is a work of genius. It's everything that Steve Howe is saying and more. It really is amazing what he did. And again, I got to throw in that third album as well, the Yes remixes of 2003. You folks got to get out and get that. Very cool. Yes. Let's talk about this. You're on a tour with you're in a band or something like that. Oh, we got the shirts. We had to geek out and wear our shirts. Yeah.
Well, that's very nice. Well, yeah. I mean, we're in this second day of rehearsal today. We got a warm-up show tomorrow. So basically, way back in the 70s, Yes started coming to Lidditz, Pennsylvania, which is near Lancaster. And basically, over the years, Roy Clare, who's a sound company, Clare Brothers, and Tate, who's Mickey Tate, our old associate, right from the. I mean, he was with the band when I joined in 1970. So basically, along the way, Mickey said, "I'm not just going to do Yes. You know, you don't go out enough. I can do more stages." We said, "Well, no, we don't want to lose you." He said, "No, I'll always do Yes." So out of this little place here called Lidditz, which is near Lancaster, to say people grew a kind of rock empire between Clare and Tate, you know, staging, lighting, you know, PA, front house, that stuff. So we love to be here. But over the last few years, they've developed a much more market and a beautiful place. So I'm staying at one of the best hotels in America is called Rock Lidditz, and the best rehearsal rooms are, you know, where we are now. And Mickey's Black Box is Mickey Tate's venue. He's got a 300-seater. So we're in there doing our rehearsal. We've got about 28 shows. We go east, west, and back to the East Coast, and finish on the 21st of November. So we're excited to get back. It's been 3 years, you know, we haven't toured, you know, because of you know what. And basically, we're up and running because we've been around the UK and Japan already this year. But that's all we've done. We've done about 16 shows. So tomorrow we do a warm-up show in Mickey's Black Box, and then we just head out on tour. You know, we'll be in Philadelphia the next day and doing 2 nights at the Keswick. And basically, we're here to play. You know, we've missed it too. And I'm just kind of setting my tempo, you know, how I build up to doing 28 shows as opposed to, you know, the 16 we've just done.
Right.
We want to feel that out and give the folks, the fans, a good show. And basically, we're celebrating, like your T-shirt comes from, you know,
50 years of this creation.
But, you know, I want to make a public announcement here that in those 50 years, Yes, I've never played the song Close to the Edge quite right, because near the end there was a key change, right? And we did that in like 1973 or something. John Anderson said, I can't sing that in that key at the end. It's way too high. I don't know what I was thinking. So we did a ghastly key change. I mean, you know,
all these years,
all these years, I always hated it, but I mean, I got used to it. It was the live version. So even when John Davison came in and I said to John, you know, I'd still like to do the ending in the right key, he said, no, I couldn't sing it there either. But this year, we tackled it in some other ways, you know, and I said that, you know, my harmony keeps rising. So maybe that's going to give the impression of us, you know, when we go to this correct key. So bless the guys for going with it. And we gave it a try. And we've been doing that all year. So this is the first year we've ever played Close to the Edge exactly like the original record. And I think the key that we end on now is heaven. You see, it's all very well, saying we can't do it in that key, let's change it. But you know, there is I mean, imagine da 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 da.
Right.
You know, that's work.
It's a different composition.
Get me out of here. And that's kind of what we did to Close to the Edge. We got near the peak, near the climax. So we went da 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 da. You know, it was never right. It was never once right, and it's the same on all the live albums, all the Yes songs, all the revisits of that. It's all wrong, but let me tell you, it's right now, and
that's
it's never
awesome.
played wrong again.
So did you? I have to ask this: every tour, when you sit down and you make the set list, when whoever said Close to the Edge, did you always say, how are we going to do the end? Like, did it come up in conversation, or was it, okay, that's like this house, we're doing it, and you didn't like it?
Well, yeah, I mean, for years and years, it was never questioned again because it was deemed impossible. You know, I mean, it's too high. Do you get it, Steve? It's too high, you know. So I had to kind of just leave it. But, you know, after all, in 2008, you know, Chris Allen and I kind of got Yes going, you know, with Benoit David and Oliver Wakeman. That's when we kind of might have said, well, look, you know, can we do this? And Benoit must have gone, no way. I mean, that's for the angels to sing. You know, that's for the choir boy to sing.
So,
but
I'm sorry, I was going to say, if you do a live album and DVD from this tour, perhaps call it Key to a New Ascension?
I get where you're going. Yeah, I mean, it is remarkable that a band like Yes would have done something so epic. After all the clout, that's a word we use in England, the power, the weight of Close to the Edge as a as a piece of music as one of the most respected prog epics
Oh yeah.
of all time.
Yeah.
And yet we've had this gremlin near the end. Well, when we get there now, it's sumptuous. You know, we because Billy and John and myself all sing this transition that was wrong.
Yeah.
And we sing it, and boy, does it sound wonderful.
Wow, I can't wait to hear it. When you recorded it, what would have gone through your mind if someone walked in and said to you privately, when you're in your 70s, you're still going to be performing this song? What would have gone through your mind? What goes through your mind now when you think of that?
Well, let's zip back there, you know, in that era. And even when I left Yes after the drama album, which was 1981, when January we met and couldn't seem to work out how to carry on properly. Even that time, I had no idea, let me say, no idea I'd be back with Yes, because when Asia got formed and then GTR got formed, you know, I was heading like, okay, you never look back, you know, you never go there. But when ABWH got formed, now, that was a missed opportunity because that band should have stayed together. It should never have become Yes again. Because, in fact, we had something a little different about us. We could play Yes. You know, sadly, we didn't have Chris, but that was, you know, there were reasons why that couldn't be. And yet we couldn't quite kind of, you know, tie it all together, you know, to carry on after the Union. It was the Union album. And
kind of ruined it. Yeah, the ABWH was clearly its own music, you know, clearly. Yeah.
Well, I want to remind, well, I mean, I want to, the moment in ABWH's career that was formed the biggest impression is one night in the Spectrum, which is no longer there. I think it's a venue in Philadelphia. We went on there and played. I think we might have even had a couple of nights, and we played in You and I. And at the end, there was a standing ovation. And 10 minutes later, I'm still standing there going, well, what are we going to do? Still clapping. And so we must have done a version that night. That was when Tony Levin was on bass too, before he got sick, and Jeff Berlin took over very proudly to finish up the tour for Tony.
Yeah, I saw you with Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, with Tony, it was something else again. So that night at the Spectrum was one night, and nobody could ever take it away. I was confused. I was like walking off to the side of the stage thinking, well, hang on, we've got another song to play. Oh, let's go back out. And we're like, yeah, thanks very much. So, yeah, I mean, we got a lot of love. So like I said, going back to bands has become a normality, you know, it's become a reformation. Like there's masses of reformations of bands, and I'm really pleased about it because, you know, dare you ever say never, you know.
Right.
I'm never going back, like the Eagles did with, you know, Hell Freezing Over and all that stuff. You can see that there is tremendous value. I mean, I don't like the bands that come back and say, we're doing one more tour, then they do 3 more tours. You know? I think if you're going to quit, let's quit and call it a day, you know. And obviously the Beatles did that, and some of the biggest bands did that. I mean, Led Zeppelin popped back for a little bit, but, you know, basically there might be a time when a band is over because they really don't want to do it. But the amazing thing about Yes is there's always been enough people who want to carry on to make it work, and now we've got a lineup with an immense vitality and possibilities, and that's why we brought out the Quest, because we wanted to show our audience that we were alive and kicking. We weren't just a retro band that would go out and play Close to the Edge with the wrong ending, you know, like everybody would have done if we hadn't thought deeper about it. So yeah, we're very proud to have carried on this great tradition that, you know, other great musicians were a very, very big part of it. But now it's in our hands to kind of find out how to make that go forwards.
Yeah, 2 really quick things out of respect for your time before we go. One, Steve, my son, hit me over the head the other day with the fact that the Quest is a year old already. Where does the time go, Steve? Where does the time go? So we're curious. You don't have to spoil the set, but we're curious if some of that's going to live on through this tour, perhaps another tour. And then the other thing is someone we interviewed last night said to say hello, and that's another partner of crime of yours, and that's Annie Haslam. Had wonderful things to say about all the work you've done together, and so did we. The version of Turn of the Century.
Yes.
That's the only song I've ever heard in my life that makes me tear up. And then when I heard your version with Annie, it's borderline better than the original version. It is so good. Folks, you've got to check that out. So She Says Hello, and thanks for that. And the tribute you did playing some of that for Alan the other day was just wonderful as well, because we know he was a co-writer. Yeah.
It's a very special song. It took a hell of a lot of work. I mean, some songs just take more, like there was a couple of songs on the Quest, which really took a lot of work. We kept going back and forwards, and we're not quite there yet. Maybe we should take this out, put that in. But when Annie and I did Turn of the Century, which was an idea from a label, which I don't often kind of jump on board with, they want me to do it, I'll do it. But at the time, I thought, I'd love to work with Annie. And that was a beautiful way, and his and her keyboard player, Bigland. So he was a great help too. But that was a nice little project. And Annie may have said, we did other recordings, and a couple might eventually creep out on some a collaborative retrospective. But that was a really good time. That's a really good time. I've got 5 minutes more if you want just another soap, or if you haven't got anything.
Okay. That would be. Oh, we could talk for hours. Are you kidding me? When you said just something I want to mention, I'm going to mention something. Then I'd like Steve to read you a bunch of comments. People are chiming in. You mentioned, the songs often can take a lot of work. I've always literally cracked up, laughed out loud when sometimes I hear these reissues of albums that have a bonus track that has like a Wake and Run Through, Revealing Science of God Run. And sometimes I listen, I go, how the did they ever get to the version we ended up hearing? Because he started out. It's so interesting to me, but that, of course, is part of not only the creative process, but when you're doing it by committee where there's a few people involved, it can reshape itself.
Also, you have to get the song up and running somehow.
Right.
You may pick the right style or the right arrangement straight away. And some of those, some of the other B versions, they're pretty outrageously weird and strange because of where we did. But that proves one very important thing about Yes, and I think that's the same still, is that you get your song to a level, but when you get in the studio, that level has got to go up and up. It's got to climb. It's got to go from being to being wow. It's got to go from being like sorted to being perfected, as far as you can take perfection, which isn't 100%, but you can take it as far as you can go.
And you got to keep it from becoming a forever project. That too.
Exactly, and that's what producers do, and that's what I do, and that's what I do with my projects, and now with Yes, I'm a kind of guider of saying, okay, this isn't there yet, we've got to do, and then it's there, and I think it's there, and the other guys chime in and say, oh yeah, we've got this one now. It's a wonderful thing, because collaboration is everything that Yes is. This is never going to be a band that's got one guy leading it, because it's got to be a collaboration, even though I've got a lot of responsibilities, and I love them because I'm not bad at doing production stuff and banging away. But basically, it's still about finding the best of the band, the best of John and all the guys.
Yeah, awesome. So Steve's going to pick just a few comments to read real quickly. Then we'll say goodbye to the audience. And Steve, if you could stay on with us for just like a minute or two afterwards to ask you something, that would be great. We'll be real quick. All right, Steve, what do you got? Pick a few good ones. Well, they're all good. You know what I mean.
Go on.
Right. I see that Chris Wright says, hello, gentlemen, from here in the UK. I'm a big fan of Steve's Time album. Given the cost and complexity of playing with an orchestra, does he ever see a possibility of a one-off Steve Howe plus strings / full orchestra concert, perhaps a one-off in London? Is that a possibility, Mr. Howe?
Yeah, I mean, the concerts are more, I was hoping you were going to say more records like that. But yeah, concerts take a lot more rehearsal. And that's one of the great things that great orchestras can do. I'd like to just pop back to the Time project, because, there's a composition on there that Virgil plays on that he wrote. And that's one of the tracks. I got the title. It might just come to me in time. It's one of those endearing spirit.
Yeah.
What's it called now? Kindred Spirits or something like.
Yeah.
It's got that kind of a title anyway. But yeah, I mean, orchestral live concerts really take the kind of. I mean, the kind of rehearsal Yes does is one thing, but to be the soloist in with an orchestra means you got to play. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to play Bach, 140, but the memory process of learning that properly, obviously it's easier in the studio, and you can you can do the learning while you're playing it. Let's rush on to another one, but thanks guys for that one.
And to give one more, Steve.
Yeah, Dean Paulos says rock's greatest guitarist, so many brilliant moments.
Oh, that's kind. Well, that's
awesome. Mr. Howe, thank you again so much for joining us. Please stay on with us for just a moment after we wave goodbye to the audience. And folks, thank you so much for following us on YesShift. And if you're a Drum Talk TV fan and watching us there, thank you so much. Tons of Bill Bruford and Alan White and Jay Shellen fans out there and Yes fans. So we wanted to make sure that we showed it to our audience over there. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. You've been wonderful. Thanks so much.